I thought it was just a normal day, until I saw his name appear on the iPad, except it wasn't him calling. I remember staring at the glowing screen, confused, my thumb hovering in hesitation. It wasn't his number I recognized. It was a FaceTime request from his work account. At first I thought maybe he'd forgotten his phone at the office, or maybe he needed me to grab something for him. I didn't think much of it, until the screen flickered to life. And there he was, my husband, sitting in our bedroom, the soft lamplight painting his face golden, his eyes bright with laughter. But he wasn't looking at me. He wasn't even alone. The sound of her voice came through first, warm, playful, too familiar. And in that moment, I swear, I felt time fold in on itself. Here's the part that will never stop haunting me. Instead of panicking, instead of screaming, I just sat there, frozen, like a ghost in my own life. He laughed at something she said, laughed in that deep, full way I hadn't heard in months, and my lips trembled. I realized the part that hurt the most wasn't what he was doing, but how calm I was while my whole world collapsed. We'd been married for 6 years. Together almost a decade. I trusted him more than anyone else in this world. We shared everything. Passwords, grocery lists, inside jokes, a history only we understood. He was my anchor, the one person who could silence every storm in me, or so, I thought. That night everything shifted. At first I tried to convince myself I was misunderstanding. Maybe it was a work call. Maybe she was just a friend. But my chest tightened as I watched his eyes soften, the way his shoulders leaned toward the screen like gravity itself was pulling him closer to her. She said something, too low for me to catch, and he smiled. Not just any smile. That smile. The one that used to be mine. The one he gave me when we were still in that dizzy honeymoon phase, when the world felt like it existed just for us. It was like watching a thief take something precious right out of my hands. I couldn't look away. My nails dug into my palms, grounding me, but it didn't help. He reached out, his fingertips brushing the camera, and I realized he was tracing her image. The intimacy of it made my stomach twist. And then, he said her name. Not in a casual, friendly way. No. He breathed it out the way a man says the name of someone who makes his heart race. Slowly, tenderly, like a prayer he'd been keeping hidden. My throat burned. Tears blurred the screen, but I forced myself to keep watching because part of me needed to see it, needed to stop living in the safety of denial. And then, she whispered, "When will you tell her?" My heart stopped. Every beat of silence afterward thundered in my ears. I wanted him to laugh it off, to shake his head, to say, "No, you've got it wrong. She's my wife. I love her." But he didn't. He hesitated. And in that hesitation, I heard every answer I never wanted. I slammed the iPad shut, my hands trembling, breath shallow, chest aching like it might burst open. I stumbled back against the couch, clutching the device like it was a weapon that had just cut me to pieces. It wasn't just betrayal. It was confirmation. Proof that the love I thought was ours was slipping through his fingers and into someone else's hands. And the most awful, gut-wrenching part? He forgot I was still logged in. I sat there in the silence of our living room, the glow of the television flickering against the walls, replaying every second in my mind. His smile, her voice, that question, and the echo of his silence. That was the night I realized sometimes heartbreak doesn't come crashing like thunder. Sometimes it sneaks in quietly, through the cracks of ordinary moments, until suddenly you're staring at the pieces of a life you thought was unbreakable, and the next morning the house felt different, too quiet, too heavy. Even the sunlight streaming through the curtains seemed sharper, more intrusive. I couldn't shake the image of his face on the iPad, soft, attentive, not looking at me. I tried to convince myself it was a mistake, that perhaps I had misunderstood, imagined the intimacy where there was none. But every detail kept replaying. The way he leaned toward her, how his laugh had trembled like it had never done for me in years. The way he whispered her name as if it were sacred. I couldn't focus on work, on chores, on the routine of our life. Every time I heard my phone buzz, my heart jumped, expecting another FaceTime, another reminder of what I hadn't yet been allowed to see. That night, I waited, pretended I was asleep, listening for his footsteps, the soft click of the front door, the weight of his presence that had once been my comfort. But when he finally entered, the house smelled the same as always, cinnamon from the candle I'd lit, his cologne faintly clinging to the coat he draped over the chair. Yet nothing felt the same. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and electric. Every glance between us, every pause in conversation carried the weight of unspoken words. I wanted to confront him, to throw the iPad at him and scream until my voice broke. But something inside me held back. Maybe it was disbelief, maybe fear, maybe the tiny thread of hope that the man I loved was still in there somewhere, beneath whatever this was. I found myself obsessively checking the iPad, replaying moments in my head, imagining conversations I hadn't heard, words I couldn't see. I tried to catch him slipping, watching him when he thought I wasn't looking. And in those stolen glimpses, I noticed subtle things I'd missed before. The way he smiled differently at her, lighter, warmer. The way his eyes softened, eyes that now seemed colder when he looked at me. The way he leaned in when they laughed, closer than he had in years. Every small gesture, a knife. I started leaving little accidental hints, watching him flinch when my eyes lingered too long, when I mentioned work casually, seeing if guilt would surface, seeing if he would betray himself in front of me. He never did. Not once. He was always careful, always polite, always perfectly composed, and that more than anything terrified me. Late one night, I decided I couldn't hold it in anymore. I grabbed the iPad again, heart hammering in my chest. I called him, not speaking, just holding the device, the screen lighting up his face in the dark bedroom. He froze the moment he saw me. For the first time in days, he didn't smile. The silence was unbearable. I wanted to say why. How could you? Was I ever enough? But my voice cracked before it could form words. He shifted awkwardly, fidgeting, looking anywhere but at me. And then he whispered something I wasn't ready for. I didn't mean for this to happen. Those words should have eased me, but they didn't. They made it worse, because the truth in them wasn't a denial. It wasn't an apology. It was admission. Days turned into a tense, torturous dance. I caught him watching her online, on calls he thought were private. I caught the softness in his voice when he answered. Her messages. I caught glimpses of intimacy I was no longer allowed to share. And yet, there were moments, small, fleeting moments, when he looked at me with the man I fell in love with. The man who had kissed me awake on lazy Sunday mornings. The man who had held me through heartbreaks no one else would have understood. In those moments, my heart twisted painfully, knowing the man I loved was still somewhere beneath the mess he'd created. Romantic tension flickered in the spaces between us. Charged glances, accidental touches, the lingering scent of him in the hallways. I hated him, but I craved him. I wanted answers, but I also wanted to feel his hands on mine, to hear his laugh, to feel that warmth I thought I'd lost forever. I began to realize just how dangerous proximity could be. Every shared space, the couch, the kitchen, even the bedroom, felt like a battlefield. One look could ignite old memories. One touch could open wounds that hadn't healed, and yet the pull between us was undeniable. And then one night, while he thought I was asleep, I left the iPad open again. Just enough so he could see me watching. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just waited, silent but present, letting him feel the weight of my gaze. When he noticed me, his eyes widened. That's when I knew the game had begun. I whispered softly, almost to myself. I caught him again. This time I didn't hide. I made sure he saw me, just standing there in the corner of our bedroom, the iPad glowing faintly against the dim lamplight. He froze the second he realized I was watching, and for the first time, in days, the casual, confident mask slipped from his face. The silence stretched heavy and suffocating like the air itself was holding its breath. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. He knew why I was there. He could see it in my eyes, the storm, the heartbreak, and the unspoken questions that demanded answers. I let myself step closer, slowly, deliberately, as if I were tracing invisible lines across a landscape that had once been ours alone. He swallowed hard. His lips parted, but no words came. My chest ached at the sight of him like this, so human, so vulnerable, yet still guarded. I heard everything, I whispered, my voice trembling slightly, betraying the calm I tried to hold. His eyes darted to the iPad, then back to me, full of guilt and fear, shame and confusion. He opened his mouth, hesitated, and finally said, I didn't mean, you didn't mean. I cut him off, my voice firmer now, though my body betrayed me, trembling with the tension that had been building for days. You didn't mean to lie? You didn't mean to let this happen? He looked at me like a man caught in a storm he couldn't control, a storm he had created himself. And then, softly, almost painfully, he said, I never wanted to hurt you. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the chasm that had opened between us. But part of me, a larger, louder part, wanted him to feel everything I had felt. The betrayal, the ache, the hollow nights when I lay awake, imagining him with someone else, and yet the pull was undeniable. My heart still recognized him. My body still remembered the way he held me, the warmth of his hands, the familiar rhythm of his breath against mine. I took a step closer. He flinched but didn't move away. The tension between us was electric, humming in the room like a live wire. I wanted to scream, to cry, to shake him until he remembered me, but instead I let the silence speak. Why? I whispered almost too softly to hear myself. Why her? He swallowed, jaw tight. His voice was low, barely audible, but each word hit me like a stone. I felt alive. With her. Something I haven't felt in a long time. Every nerve in my body screamed. I wanted to collapse into him, to demand that he stay, to forgive him, or maybe just to feel his touch again. But I also wanted to run, to escape the cage of our marriage that had suddenly become suffocating. Then, without warning, he reached for my hand, slow, hesitant, almost pleading. His fingers brushed mine, and the sensation was both comforting and torturous. Every memory we'd built together, the nights we spent tangled in each other's arms, the whispered promises, the laughter, flooded me, and I nearly lost myself in it. I wanted to let him in, to forgive, to reclaim what we had lost. But the betrayal was still raw, a wound that throbbed with every heartbeat. I pulled my hand back, slowly, deliberately, forcing myself to stay, grounded, to stay in control. He leaned toward me, voice trembling. I love you, I never stopped. The words should have melted me. And part of me wanted to believe them, but the damage had been done. The intimacy we shared had been violated. And yet, standing there, staring into each other's eyes, I realized something terrifying. I still wanted him. I still craved the connection that had made me feel whole. We were on the edge of something dangerous, something intoxicating, a line we both wanted to cross, but couldn't. His breath mingled with mine. The faint scent of his cologne was a cruel reminder of what we had once shared. I could feel his heartbeat, the tension in his shoulders, the yearning in his eyes. And then, The interruption. A sudden ping from the iPad. A notification from work. A message that broke the fragile spell. He jumped back, flustered, guilt painting every line of his face. I stepped away, retreating into the shadows of the room, my heart still racing, body still aching from the proximity, from the tension, from the memory of what almost happened. Tomorrow, I whispered to myself, barely audible. Tomorrow, we'll see the truth. The house felt smaller now, almost claustrophobic. Every sound, the creak of the floorboards, the faint hum of the refrigerator, even the rhythm of our own breathing, was amplified, echoing in the spaces between us. I could feel him before. I saw him, the weight of his presence in the doorway, hesitant, conflicted. "You need to tell me everything," I said, my voice firm but quivering beneath the surface. He ran his hands through his hair, jaw tight, eyes darting around like he was searching for an escape. He started, then stopped. The words hung between us, heavy and raw like a storm waiting to break. I took a step closer, heart hammering, the tension between us almost unbearable. "I can't fix this if you don't speak. I can't move past it if you don't tell me what I need to know." And then he did. He confessed. Not just about her, but about the months of feeling unseen, unappreciated, lost inside our own marriage. I listened, every word stabbing through me, but also oddly familiar. Because I had felt it too. I had felt invisible while trying to hold us together. "I never wanted it to go this far," he said, voice low, almost pleading. I thought I could stop it. I thought I could manage it without hurting you. I could feel the honesty, the vulnerability. And yet, the betrayal still burned. Every confession was like rubbing salt into a wound that had barely started to close. And still, the pull between us was undeniable. I watched him in the lamplight, shadows playing across his face, and remembered the man I fell in love with. The warmth in his eyes, the way he used to touch me, gently, reverently, as if I were fragile glass. Even now, anger and hurt twisting inside me, a part of me still longed for him. He stepped closer, and this time I didn't step back. The air crackled, heavy with desire, with regret, with the unspoken understanding that this moment could either destroy us completely or bring us closer than ever. "I still love you," he said, soft, desperate. "I don't know how to stop loving you. I never stopped." The words were like fire. I wanted to scream, to yell, to hit him. But I also wanted to collapse into him, let all the hurt and longing and tension melt into his arms. My fingers twitched, aching to reach for him, but my pride, my fear, held me back. He reached for me again, slower this time, almost reverently, as if afraid I might vanish if he moved too quickly. Our hands brushed. My breath caught. The electricity in that contact was nearly unbearable. And then he touched my face, gentle, tender, as if apologizing without words. I closed my eyes, heart racing, memory and desire and heartbreak colliding in a storm inside me. The world outside the bedroom, our marriage, our home, the lies, seemed to disappear. For a moment, it was just us. Just the heat between our bodies, the tension in our voices, the pull that had never really gone away. But I couldn't let go. Not yet. I pulled back, just enough to make him see the hurt still etched on my face. "You've broken me," I whispered, "and I don't know if you can fix it." He shook his head, desperation in his eyes. "I'll do anything to make this right." And for the first time I felt the fragility of our love, the power it still held over me. We were on the edge of a precipice. One wrong move, and we'd fall apart forever. But the other choice, letting ourselves be honest, letting ourselves feel, might save us. We stood there inches apart, tension thick as fog, our hearts beating too fast to ignore. I wanted him. I hated him, I loved him, I feared him. Every emotion collided, leaving me dizzy, breathless, trembling. And then, he kissed me. Tentative at first, questioning as if asking permission. I froze. My body wanted to melt into him, to forgive, to surrender. But my mind screamed no, screamed not yet. I pulled away just enough to see the pain in his eyes, the longing, the confusion. I can't yet, I whispered. Not until I know you mean it. Not until I know you'll never do this again. He nodded, biting his lip, swallowing hard. I'll prove it, he said. I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. And I believed him. At least, a part of me did. That night we didn't sleep. Not really. We sat in the quiet of our bedroom talking, sometimes touching, sometimes pulling away. We revisited memories, confessed fears, revealed truths we had buried deep inside. The tension didn't leave. It thickened, became almost a living thing, pulsing between us, reminding us of what we'd lost and what we could still reclaim. By the time dawn crept through the curtains, I realized something terrifying and wonderful. Even after betrayal, even after heartbreak, the connection between us was still alive. It was fragile. It was raw. The house was silent that morning, but it felt alive. Every shadow, every flicker of sunlight across the walls seemed to hold its own weight of expectation. I sat on the edge of our bed, fingers gripping the sheets, heart hammering, not with fear, but with a strange mixture of hope, pain, and something like anticipation. He entered the room quietly, eyes fixed on me. For the first time in weeks, there was no mask, no casual smiles, no deflection, just him. Raw, vulnerable, real. I don't expect forgiveness, he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of sleepless nights, regrets, and longing. I just want you to know the truth, all of it. I nodded almost silently, my throat tight. My emotions were tangled, anger, hurt, love, desire. But underneath it all was clarity. This was the moment we either rebuilt or shattered completely. He stepped closer and I could see every detail of him. The faint lines around his eyes, the softness in his jaw, the tension in his shoulders that mirrored my own. His presence alone was enough to make me feel dizzy, like the world had narrowed to the space between us. I made mistakes, he whispered, voice cracking. I let her in and I let you slip away. And I can't take back the hurt I caused you. But I can try to make it right. I can spend every day proving that I still love you. I could see it in his eyes, the sincerity, the desperation, the aching regret. And for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to imagine it. A life with him again, carefully rebuilt, piece by piece. We moved closer, slowly, the tension between us electric. When his hand brushed mine, it was like a spark igniting a fire I hadn't realized was still smoldering. Our eyes met, communicating what words couldn't. Fear, longing, hope, and the unshakable bond we had shared long before betrayal. I want you, he said, voice low, trembling. I want us, but only if you want it too. I swallowed hard, heart racing. Every instinct told me to run, to protect the fragile pieces of my heart. But every memory, every heartbeat, every whispered promise from our past drew me closer. I do, I whispered. And then we were together. Not rushed, not desperate, but deliberate. Fingers entwined, foreheads touching, breaths mingling. The kiss came slow, careful, like we were learning each other all over again, feeling every pulse, every tremor. It wasn't just desire, it was understanding, forgiveness, and the rekindling of a connection that had seemed lost forever. We pulled back just enough to see each other clearly. I traced the line of his jaw, feeling the warmth of him beneath my fingers. This doesn't erase what happened, I said softly, but it's a start. He nodded, pressing his forehead to mine. It's all I can ask for, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it enough. The hours that followed were quiet, intimate, not with physical passion alone, but with confessions, laughter, tears, and the slow rebuilding of trust. We shared stories we had kept buried, fears we had ignored, and dreams we still wanted to chase, together. And as we sat in the soft glow of the late afternoon, I realized something powerful. The pain he had caused, and the betrayal I had witnessed, had changed us. It had fractured us. But in that fracture there was also space. Space to rebuild, to grow, to understand each other more deeply than before. Later, when he left for work, I stayed behind, picking up the iPad one last time. The screen lit up, and for a moment my heart leapt, expecting another echo of the past. But it was empty. Just the home we had built, the memories we had shared, and the knowledge that I was no longer a victim of his mistakes, but a participant in the story of my own life. I smiled, a quiet, satisfied smile, and whispered to myself, "This story doesn't end with him. It begins with me." Because in the end, the climax wasn't just about him coming back to me. It was about me reclaiming my strength, my voice, and my heart. And in that reclamation, I found the freedom to love again, fully, deliberately,